You already booked the hotel? She didn't flinch. She just pulled the zipper on her duffel bag like she was heading to yoga. I did, she said. It's non-refundable. There were 3 seconds of silence. The sound of my own breathing felt louder than the clock on the wall. You booked the room before asking me? I asked, even though the answer had already punched me in the chest. I needed to know I'd have a place to go, she replied. Just in case you said no. But you didn't wait for me to say anything. I didn't want to argue. Argue. That's what she called this. Me standing in a doorway watching the woman I married fold silk lingerie into a travel bag. And when I didn't respond, she took that silence and ran with it. Like she always does. Like silence is something she's allowed to rewrite into agreement. I'll be back before noon, she added. It's just one night. I nodded. Not because I accepted it, but because my body was too stunned to do anything else. One night with him, I said. She didn't correct me. That's when I knew. So I stood there, looking at the person who once cried in my arms over a stubbed toe, and now didn't even blink while packing heels for someone else's floor. She reached for her purse. I'll call you tomorrow. That's when I said it, quietly, without even turning my head. I have 2 options for you. She froze. Her hand paused just above the keys, like gravity had changed. No, I said. Not threats. Not ultimatums. Just options. Still, she didn't speak. 1. I said, you go tonight. You have your night. But when you come back, everything you own will be packed in boxes, and I'll be somewhere you can't find me. She blinked, but said nothing. Or 2. I continued. You stay, you cancel the room, and you tell me what this really is, what you've already done, what you planned. All of it. No more lies. Finally, she turned. Her voice was soft, almost shaking. That's manipulative. No, I said, stepping out of the doorway. It's clarity. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Maybe she was. But what she didn't know was that he, the man she thought was waiting for her, had already left his own trail. And when I show her what I found in the car she thought I'd never check. That's when everything changes. She didn't answer right away. Just stood there in the hallway with her purse in one hand and her keys in the other, like if she moved an inch, the truth might spill out and stain everything. I don't want to ruin us, she finally whispered. I almost laughed, but my throat was dry. I didn't have it in me. Ruin us? She was already in heels. The hotel room was booked, and the perfume she wore wasn't the one she usually saved for work. It was the one she only wore once, on our anniversary. The irony felt like a knife. I didn't say anything. I just walked past her and grabbed my coat. I heard her voice behind me, strained and rising. Where are you going? I'm taking the car, I muttered. Your car? Why? Because I think you forgot something in it. Her expression cracked then, just for a second. Not guilt, fear. The kind you try to swallow, but it bubbles back up anyway. She stepped forward. No, Oren. What are you doing? I didn't answer. I was already halfway out the door. She followed me outside, barefoot on the cold concrete, calling after me like suddenly I mattered again. The door to her car was unlocked. Of course it was. She always thought she was too careful to be caught. The passenger seat was reclined. Far back. Not all the way, just far enough to tell a story. There was a bottle of water in the cup holder. 2 straws. A single wrapper from a breath mint. But what stopped me, what made my heart slam hard enough to make me dizzy, was the small black phone charger coiled on the passenger floor. One of those cheap gas station ones. The kind I'd never seen her use. The kind I saw in his hand, once, when he dropped her off 2 weeks ago and waved at me like he was just being polite. She had never mentioned him by name. But now I had it. I reached into the glove compartment and found a folded receipt. The hotel name, Room 211, booked for one night. The name on the guest list wasn't hers. It was his. Benedict. I just stared at it. Benedict. Who even has a name like that anymore? It sounded like someone from a war diary. And yet he was real. Somewhere nearby. Waiting. She was behind me now. Still barefoot. Still trying to sound calm. Oren, I didn't do anything yet. Yet, I repeated, holding the receipt up without looking at her. You left it in the glove box. She stepped closer. I panicked. I didn't mean for you to see that. You meant for me to say yes without seeing anything. Her voice dropped. It was supposed to be just one night. Just for me. That's what hit me hardest. Just for me. Like it was a birthday dinner. A reward. Something earned. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I just nodded slowly and walked back toward the house, receipt in hand. Are you leaving? She asked, her voice shaking now. No, I said, not turning around. Not yet. I want to hear the story you're going to tell me when you finally decide I'm worth being honest with. She didn't follow me. And that night, she didn't sleep in our bed. But what she didn't know, what I had already done, was open her laptop. And what I found waiting in the drafts folder wasn't a goodbye letter. It was a list. With dates, locations, and initials. And Benedict wasn't the first. I wasn't looking to snoop. I really wasn't. That's the part that keeps circling in my head like a mosquito at 3 a.m. I didn't go digging to find a way to destroy her. I went looking for reassurance. Proof that maybe I'd misread everything. That maybe the receipt in the glove box had a boring, corporate explanation. Maybe Benedict was a client. Maybe the water bottle was hers from earlier. Maybe this was just a weird, disconnected thing she thought she needed, and not some breadcrumb trail to a second life I wasn't invited to. But when I opened the laptop, her old gray one with the cracked spacebar and a strip of masking tape over the webcam, it was already open to her email. She hadn't logged out. She never does. She trusts me too much. Or maybe she just forgot I still existed as someone who might notice. I didn't even go to her inbox first. I saw a tab open titled Drafts. I clicked it before I could talk myself out of it. At the top was an email titled Last Night. I didn't have to click it. I didn't want to. My stomach already knew what it contained. But below it, that's where I saw the part that changed everything. 13 other drafts. All of them with different dates. Some from as far back as November. One from last spring. Most of the subjects were simple. One-word things like Wednesday or outside, or worse, names. Initials. The oldest one. It was titled Artie, confirm if still okay? I clicked that one. It was written like a letter, not an email. Like a diary entry she didn't want to admit was real. I've thought about canceling, but the way he made me feel last time still hasn't left my body. I feel like I'm finally in control when I'm with him. I know it's wrong, but it's also mine. Something I don't owe anyone an explanation for. Last time, that line kept echoing. Last time, this wasn't a new development. This wasn't a one-night need. This was a system, a plan, a habit. I read 2 more drafts. One addressed to B. Benedict, dated 3 months ago. He's becoming suspicious, but I'm playing it down. I don't think he has the stomach to confront me. He's too soft. It's honestly why I feel safe keeping this going. He's too soft. She meant me. I can't explain what that feels like. To read that from the person you've trusted with your worst days, your smallest fears, your last name. To realize they see your love as weakness. That they've built an escape plan based on the assumption that you're too gutless to object. And the worst part? She was right. I sat there, in my own living room, shaking so hard I couldn't hold the mouse steady. I read 3, 4, 5 drafts. Mentions of locations I'd never heard of. One that said, already booked him for March, same setup as last time. Another saying, he asked if I'd leave my husband. I laughed. Laughed. The drafts weren't just messages. They were fingerprints. Evidence. Maps of every lie she told while sitting across from me at dinner asking how my day was. I couldn't read anymore. I closed the laptop. I stared at the blank TV. I tried to cry but couldn't. I tried to scream but didn't. I felt small. I felt used. But mostly, I felt stupid. She chose me because I wouldn't fight back. And up until now, she was right. But as I sat there, the silence started to change. It wasn't just quiet, it was hollow. Like the shell of my life had finally cracked open, and I was just sitting in the middle of it, watching it fall apart in slow motion. I didn't know what to do. Not yet. But I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. So I printed the drafts. Every single one. And I left them in a manila folder on the kitchen counter. No note. No words. Just her words, staring back at her when she came home. When she saw them, she didn't scream. She didn't deny. She didn't even try to explain right away. She just stared at me, and for the first time in years, I saw fear in her eyes. But what she didn't realize was that my fear had finally burned out. And what I was about to ask her next wasn't about the other men. It was about why she had been preparing to disappear entirely, and what else she thought I wasn't going to find. She didn't touch the folder for hours. When she came home that night, her eyes landed on it immediately, center of the kitchen table, manila, thick enough to feel like it had weight. Real weight. Truth weight. She didn't ask what it was. She didn't need to. She just stood there, keys still in hand, staring at the folder like it might explode. I didn't say anything. I sat at the far end of the living room. Lights off, no TV. I didn't want noise. I wanted her to feel the silence. Really feel it. Eventually, she sat. She didn't open it right away. She took a breath first. Then another. When she did, flip the cover open and saw the printouts, the drafts, the hotel receipts, the screenshots. I saw her jaw clench. Not in guilt. Not in shame. In frustration. She was annoyed that I found it all. That's when I realized she wasn't scared of me leaving. She was scared I'd mess up whatever she'd already set in motion. She closed the folder slowly, methodically, like it wasn't the unraveling of our entire marriage in there. I knew you'd look eventually, she said without looking at me. I just hoped it'd be after. After what? I asked. She hesitated. After I was gone. I stood up, walked slowly toward her. Gone like, for a night? I said. Or gone like you don't plan on coming back at all. She looked up at me then, and she didn't blink. You weren't supposed to see any of this, she said. I was going to explain things differently. Make it easier for you. Softer. Easier for me. I nearly laughed. There's a list of men in that folder, Tessa. You had dates. Schedules. You were booking rooms under fake names. You wrote things like, he's too soft to notice. That's how you were going to leave me? With soft lies and gift-wrapped abandonment. No, Oren, she said. I wasn't going to leave you. I was going to leave everything. You. This life. This version of me. That stopped me. What does that even mean? She stood now. Slow. Calm. Like she'd practiced this in her head a dozen times. Maybe she had. You think this is just about men? She said, tilting her head. You think I was bored and wanted attention? You don't even see it, do you? I said nothing. I didn't trust myself to speak. I never wanted this house, she continued. I never wanted the routine, the quiet. I married you because I thought I'd grow into this life and learn to love it. But I never did. And after I met Benedict and Robert and, she paused, others, it wasn't about them, Oren. It was about who I was when I wasn't here. She said it like she was reciting from a script. Like she wasn't just leaving me. She was auditioning for a new life. I walked to the window, gripping the curtain so tight it wrinkled. You were going to run away. She didn't deny it. I had money saved. I had paperwork ready. I even had a fake identity built under my maiden name. I wasn't going to tell anyone where I went. For how long? I asked. She didn't answer. Then I remembered something. Something small. A bank statement from 2 months ago. An odd withdrawal I couldn't place. Nearly $18,000 transferred out of our joint account in one day. You already moved the money, didn't you? She nodded. And then she added, it's in an account in Kansas. Under the name Valerie Glenn. That name meant nothing to me. Until she told me the last part. I legally changed my name 3 months ago in another state. I filed the paperwork on a business trip. There's a man there who thinks I'm a freelance consultant from Oregon. He's never even heard of you. The room went quiet again. But it wasn't empty. It was filled with everything she wasn't saying. She had a second life. A new identity. A new man. A new future. And the only reason I found out was because she left a receipt in the glove box by accident. If she hadn't slipped up, I would have woken up one morning and she would have been gone. Just vanished. Like a ghost story no one believes. But what terrified me most wasn't that she planned to leave. It was that she looked relieved I finally knew. Like the performance was exhausting, and now she could finally step off the stage. But I had one more question. Just one. Why tell me now? Her voice cracked slightly for the first time. Because the man I'm supposed to meet in Kansas, he wants me to prove I'm really single. He asked me to send a photo of signed divorce papers. And that's when I realized. She wasn't going to ask me for a divorce. She was going to forge one. She said it like it was nothing. Like forging my signature on divorce papers was a minor offense, like borrowing a sweater without asking. Something she could explain away later if caught, or pass off as a misunderstanding. I stood frozen. I wasn't even sure what part of me was breathing anymore. My hands were cold. My chest was tight. I looked at her across the kitchen like she was a stranger who had just admitted she stole my name, my life, and was about to wear it somewhere else. I asked the only thing I could get out. You were really going to fake it? A divorce? Tessa didn't say yes. She didn't say no either. Instead, she gave me that look. The one she used when she'd already decided something, but wanted me to feel like I had input. I'd seen it before, when she let me choose the paint color for the living room, even though the samples had already been tossed. When she asked if we could host her sister for 6 months. It was the look of someone who made decisions quietly and only told you once she was too far gone to turn back. She exhaled through her nose. He needed proof. You could have just told me you wanted a divorce. She tilted her head. Would you have signed? It was such a simple question, but the implication behind it shattered me. She never even considered telling me the truth because, in her mind, I was just an obstacle, something to maneuver around, like traffic or a locked door. I pulled out a chair and sat because my knees didn't feel trustworthy anymore. How long have you been preparing this? I asked, my voice almost not mine. She looked down. Almost a year. A year. A year of sleeping next to me. A year of saying love you before bed. A year of smiling through my birthday dinner. A year of pretending she was planning vacations when she was really mapping out an escape route. And all this time, I thought she was pulling away because of work, or stress, or the world just being too much sometimes. She wasn't pulling away. She was disappearing. I asked her to show me the papers, if she had copies. She said nothing, but walked to her bag and pulled out a folder I'd never seen before, black, stiff leather, with a gold clip. Inside were 5 documents. I recognized the header immediately, Wayne County Circuit Court, petition for dissolution of marriage. And at the bottom, my name, my signature. Except it wasn't mine. It was close. So close it scared me. The slant was perfect. The loop on the D. The double T's in Beckett connected with the exact curve I'd used for years. Who did this? I asked, barely holding the paper steady. She didn't answer. I asked again louder. Finally, she Saturday, you're not going to believe me. Try me. She whispered a name, and everything inside me dropped. Jasper. My brother. My own brother. The same brother who once punched a hole in the wall when someone cheated on him. The same brother who helped me build Tessa's home office when she started working remote. The same brother who offered to check in on her when I was away on a work trip last summer. I stared at her, unblinking. You're telling me he forged my signature? She nodded slowly. He said you two had similar handwriting. He practiced. I didn't know he'd be that good. You asked him? It wasn't like that. How was it, Tessa? She looked ashamed for the first time. We were drunk. It started as a joke. He offered to help me get out if I ever needed to. I thought he was just being supportive. But then he got involved. You slept with him? She looked away. She didn't say no. I stood so fast the chair tipped and clattered behind me. Everything was bending. The walls. The floor. The room wasn't real anymore. My life wasn't real anymore. She had a second name. A second man. A second life. And my brother was the one helping her leave me like I was a used-up version of something she never really wanted. I stormed out of the kitchen. I got in my car. I didn't even know where I was going. But I knew who I had to find. Because if Jasper had really done what she said, he had answers. And one of those answers would explain the money that disappeared from my parents' estate account last October. A withdrawal made under my name. The same month, she changed hers. I don't remember the drive to Jasper's house. I only remember the sound of my own heartbeat, and the blur of the trees outside my window, flickering past like accusations. My hands were still shaking when I pulled into his driveway. It was late, close to midnight. His porch light was on. That stupid carved wooden welcome sign our uncle made was still leaning against the side rail, half crooked. Nothing had changed, except everything had. He opened the door like he'd been waiting for me, like he knew. He didn't even look surprised. He just raised one eyebrow and stepped aside, letting me walk in. I wanted to punch him, or scream, or throw something. But all I could do was stand there in the middle of his living room and ask the question like I was trying to confirm whether I still lived in my own body. Did you forge the signature? He didn't flinch. He didn't stall. He didn't even pretend to be confused. Yeah, he said, as if I'd asked if he borrowed a jacket. I did. That broke something in me. I staggered back. Like the honesty hit harder than a lie ever could. Why? I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do that to me? He walked over to his kitchen counter and poured himself a drink. Neat. Like this was just a normal conversation between brothers who still shared blood. She told me what you were doing to her, he said casually. How small she felt. How empty. You didn't see it, but she was drowning. You mean she was cheating? He swirled the drink in his hand. You think it's that simple? Yes. I snapped. Yes, Jasper. It is. You don't fix someone's marriage by sleeping with their wife and forging legal documents. She asked for help, he said, like he was the noble one. You weren't listening to her. She was falling apart, man. And you just kept going through the motions. Fixing vending machines. Making chicken every Thursday. You were never going to see what she needed. She needed a signature so she could become a new person and vanish with my life savings. Jasper looked me dead in the eyes and said the most hollow thing I've ever heard. She didn't want to hurt you. She just didn't want to be yours anymore. I couldn't breathe. She stole my name, I said slowly. She stole my money. And you helped her. He downed the rest of his drink in one motion. She was going to leave you anyway. At least this way, she had support. And what did you get out of it? He didn't answer. That silence was the final nail. You slept with her, I whispered. Did you tell her you loved her? Did you plan to follow her to Kansas too? He scoffed. She wouldn't have taken me even if I tried. So it was true. He helped her destroy me, and still wasn't good enough to be part of the future she was building. The irony stung worse than the betrayal. And then he added something that made my stomach twist. I only forged the signature once. What are you talking about? I asked, my chest tightening. There were 2 other documents. A power of attorney form. And something else she said was insurance in case things got messy. I stepped forward. What other document? He looked at me for a long moment. I think it was a will. The room tilted. A will. He nodded. Yeah. I didn't read it. She just said it was legal prep. That she needed it to close out an identity cleanly. I could barely stay upright. You signed a fake version of my will. I didn't think she'd use it. You didn't think, Jasper. He slammed the glass into the sink. She told me you were spiraling. That you'd go dark if she left. That you might even hurt yourself. She said she was scared. She was setting me up. I couldn't believe it. All the signs were there. The money. The second identity. The timeline. But now, it wasn't just an escape. It was an erasure. She wasn't just trying to disappear. She was laying the groundwork to make it look like I had disappeared. Or worse. Jasper ran a hand through his hair, suddenly looking like the one who was breaking. She manipulated me too, he said, quieter now. I thought I was helping. I didn't reply. I didn't trust myself to speak. I walked out. I drove. Aimlessly. My phone buzzed twice. It was her. I didn't pick up. But the message preview burned into my screen. You weren't supposed to know yet. Please come home. I'll explain everything. We can still fix this. Fix this. She was already rewriting my entire life. But the one thing she forgot? I still had the original documents. And if she forged a will, there was only one person who could have helped her file it. My father's lawyer. A man who owed me a favor. And suddenly, I knew where I had to go next. I drove through 3 red lights on the way to Leonard's office. I didn't even notice. My hands were shaking the whole ride there. I had the air cranked on high, even though it was cold outside, because my skin felt like it was burning. I just kept thinking one thing over and over. She forged my name on a will. Leonard Vaughn isn't just any lawyer. He was my dad's estate attorney. He helped settle everything after the accident. He was one of the few people my father ever trusted, which means, by default, I trusted him too. Or I used to. I parked crooked outside his building and didn't even lock the car. I stormed through the glass door, past the receptionist who tried to stop me, and straight into Leonard's office like a man who had nothing left to lose. He looked up from his desk, startled, but not surprised. Maybe he'd been expecting this visit. Maybe Tessa warned him. Oren, he said calmly, putting down his pen. You can't just walk in here unannounced. You signed something, I said, closing the door behind me and leaning against it. Or at least someone in your office did. Leonard removed his glasses. You're going to have to be more specific. A will. With my name on it. Filed, or drafted, or something. Months ago. I didn't sign anything. You know that. I haven't been here since Dad passed. He studied me for a long second. Then, slowly, he opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a manila folder. It looked too familiar. I stepped forward. That's mine. He sighed, flipping it open. It has your name on it. He turned the folder toward me, and there it was. My name, my address, the last 4 digits of my social, and a signature at the bottom of a typed will I'd never seen before. It was dated almost 8 months ago. I leaned in. Does that look like my handwriting to you? He didn't answer right away. Leonard, that is not mine. I agree, he finally said. It looked off, but it came from someone who claimed to represent you. Who? A woman named Valerie Glenn. My stomach dropped. That was the alias Tessa used for the Kansas bank account. Leonard kept speaking, like he was unraveling his own guilt. She had every supporting document. Driver's license, power of attorney paperwork, everything looked official. She said you were traveling and wanted this filed quietly, that it was just a precaution. There was even a notarized letter with what looked like your writing. She manipulated you, I said coldly. She used your trust in my father to get to you. Leonard leaned back in his chair, visibly shaken. Oren, I'm sorry. If I'd known. I cut him off. You said she filed a power of attorney too? Yes. It's in the same file. She didn't request access to your estate accounts, but she left a clause in the will. He stopped, like he didn't want to keep going. What clause? If you were declared missing for more than 90 days and presumed deceased, she would inherit your personal assets and the property. I sat down. Slowly. The room was spinning again. She wasn't just leaving, I whispered. She was going to vanish me. That phrase, vanish me, didn't even feel real. But that's what it was. She wasn't trying to hurt me emotionally. She was trying to erase me from the legal record. Step by step. Quietly. Thoroughly. Leonard shook his head. I feel like a fool. I've known you since you were a teenager. She fooled everyone. No, not everyone. Because someone else had to help her get those documents notarized. Someone had to provide the ID. Someone had to play me on paper. And there was only one person who knew my old signatures well enough to forge them convincingly. Jasper. I stood again. Do you still have copies of everything? Yes. I need them. Leonard handed them over without hesitation. If there's anything I can do to fix this. There is, I said. You can stay quiet. For now. Because I had a new plan forming. And it wasn't revenge. It wasn't rage. It was fear. Fear of what else she might be willing to do now that she knew I was catching up. If she was willing to fake my will, steal my name, nearly vanish with my money. What stopped her from going one step further? My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was another message from Tessa. I can explain everything. Please just meet me. Tonight. Alone. I promise it's not what you think. That's the moment I realized. She didn't know I had the folder. She didn't know I'd spoken to Leonard. She still thought she was in control. But I was starting to see something else. She was panicking. And if she was desperate enough to make me disappear on paper, I had to wonder what she'd do when she realized that wasn't enough. I met her at the old lake trailhead just before dusk. She picked the place. Out of the way, quiet, almost nostalgic. It was where we used to walk in the early years, before the mortgages and secrets and forged documents. I think she thought that by bringing me there, she'd soften everything. She was already waiting when I arrived, parked under the same crooked pine tree where we used to eat drive-through fries on summer nights. She was wearing that dark green jacket I once bought her when we got caught in the rain. It used to smell like pine and safety. Now it just made my stomach twist. I stepped out and walked slowly toward her. She smiled. I didn't. Thank you for coming, she said. I didn't respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, folder under my arm. She stepped closer. I know what you found. I raised an eyebrow. Do you? She nodded. Leonard called me. I stayed silent. Tessa took a deep breath. I'm not proud of what I did. Any of it. But I need you to understand, it was never about hurting you. I didn't even realize how deep I was in until I couldn't find my way out. You forged my name, I said calmly. You took my identity, my money, and had plans to declare me missing. Tears welled in her eyes. I was wrong. I see that now. Jasper, Kansas, the aliases, I was running from something I never tried to fix. I thought the only way to save myself was to erase everything around me. You didn't deserve that. No, I said. I didn't. She looked down. I came tonight because I don't want to run anymore. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted to return something. She handed me a small envelope. My name, handwritten. Inside, a cashier's check, the exact amount taken from the estate account. Nearly $18,000. I stared at it. I never spent it, she whispered. It sat in the account untouched. Part of me always knew I'd never go through with it. And the will? I asked. She shook her head. I never filed it. Not officially. I knew if I crossed that line, I couldn't come back. I believed her. Not because she earned it, but because I'd already verified it with Leonard. The documents had been prepared, notarized, but they were never submitted to court. I wasn't dead on paper. I wasn't gone. I was still here. And maybe that's what mattered. I'm going to move away, she said. Not to Kansas. Not to anyone. Just away. Somewhere I can figure out who I am without destroying everything in the process. She paused. I've filed the real papers now. For divorce. Signed. With my name. There was a long silence between us. The kind that would have broken me a week ago. But not now. Now it felt quiet. Like the storm had finally passed. I looked around the woods. The fading sunlight cutting gold across the trees. The cool air brushing against my arms. For the first time in what felt like years, I could breathe. I'm not angry anymore, I said. But I can't carry this weight for you. I never could. She nodded. I know. We didn't hug. We didn't cry. We just stood there for a moment longer. Then she turned and walked back to her car. I watched the taillights vanish down the gravel road. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was being left behind. I felt like I was finally standing still, on solid ground. A week later, the divorce was finalized. I moved out of the house and into a smaller place near the coast. Started teaching part-time at a community center. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fast. But it was real. I even picked up painting again. Something I hadn't touched since college. Turns out I'm not bad at it. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became mine again. And sometimes, that's more than enough.